Dear students, we will discuss two of the important discoveries of the century. One known as the Zeeman effect and the other one known as the Doppler effect, both of which revolutionized the entire field of science in general and physics or astronomy in particular. So we'll begin with the Zeeman effect, which I think already you might have learned in your modern physics classrooms, and you will be learning about the same effect in your quantum mechanics classes as well. Okay, already I have mentioned about Zeeman effect a while discussing about solar magnetic fields. Now little details regarding the phenomenon. Actually, it was in the year 1896 a Dutch physicist named Peter Zeeman while he was burning sodium in a Bunsen burner in his lab, he switched on the magnetic field using an electromagnet, and he found that the most common D line is the characteristic yellow spectral line of sodium, and you are familiar with the D lines of sodium. You are very familiar with the sodium line that you are obtaining. You are using this yellow colored sodium light in doing your Newton's ring experiment and also the air wedge experiment in your labs. Okay, so that spectral line, once you observe it, you are using monochromatic spectral lines in some of the spectrometer experiments also. So those sodium lines, which is having a wavelength around some 600 nanometer, and you know that in our case we get it around, in the Newton's ring experiment we measure it around 589 nanometer, which comes in the yellow region. So this D line, which he was observing through a grating, he observed the sodium D line using a grating. You know, we are using a prism or a grating, which is as a dispersing element. So he observed the lines with the magnetic field off, so he was getting it as a single thick line, and to his surprise he found that the moment he switched on the current through the electromagnet, the single magnetic field lines was getting splitted up into three components. It was getting split up into three components. Okay, there are two cases actually. In one case it is getting split up into two components, in another case it is getting split up into three components. Okay, so anyway, it is getting split up into component lines, and that happened when the magnetic field is switched on. So under the effect of an applied magnetic field, we are representing by the vector H. H is the magnetizing field, you may be remembering. Okay, so when H is 0, when H equal to 0, you got only the characteristic D line, a single line, that is the original line, I can say original spectrum line, and in the presence of a magnetic field, means when the magnetizing field is switched, it's switched on by switching on the electric current, automatically they found that the original D line of the sodium was getting split up into three component lines. In one situation it is three component lines, in another situation, depending on the way of observation, you will see that it is split up into two component lines. Okay, so this splitting up of spectral lines in the presence of an external magnetic field is what came to be known as the Zeeman effect. And 6 years later, in the year 1902, Peter Zeeman received the Nobel Prize in Physics for this wonderful discovery, which revolutionized the entire field of astronomy and astrophysics in particular, because this effect could provide a technique to predict or measure the strong magnetic field that surrounds every astrophysical object. We have seen that in our study of sun, that sun and all other stars are possessing very strong magnetic field, and the strong magnetic field manifests itself in a number of ways. It creates a lot of phenomena like solar flares, there are solar faculae, there are sunspots, okay, and there are wonderful eruptions that is happening in the surface of the sun. All these were manifestations of the magnetic activity present in sun. So the amount of this magnetic field, which couldn't be otherwise measured, was possible, could be exactly measured by applying the Zeeman effect. The reason is that the amount of splitting, you can see that here in the splitting into three lines, one line corresponds to, one line is in the position of the original line itself. So this is known as a central line. And these two are component lines. So we can call it, for example, we can call it some names. So say that this is corresponding to a frequency nu1, this is corresponding to the original frequency nu0, and this is corresponding to some frequency say nu2. Or there will be a corresponding lambda 1. Okay, sorry, I can write here lambda 1, there will be a lambda 0, and there will be a lambda 2. So you know that this line corresponds to a particular transition. Okay, when we consider the transitions happening in atom, you know, every spectral line is the result of some sort of a transition between two energy levels. Okay, so corresponding to every transition, you will be getting a particular photon having a frequency nu, or it will be having a wavelength equal to what, lambda. So what I denote here as nu1, nu0, and nu2 are the frequencies, and lambda 1, lambda 0, and lambda 2 are the corresponding wavelengths of these transitions, right? Okay, now you can see on the left side a typical arrangement that that is used to find Zeeman effect. Okay, so you can see here this is an sodium lamp. So what you see in the middle, like a tube, okay, a glowing tube is nothing but the lamp. It's a sodium lamp. Okay, or it can be any other lamp, not only sodium. The same phenomenon was observed with many other lamps, okay, many other sources. So say that this is a source, this is a source of light. In the first case, the experimental case, it was a sodium lamp, and you can see that the sodium lamp has been kept intact, and you can see two pole pieces here. You can see two pole pieces are kept very close by. These are the north and the south poles, the north and the south poles of a strong electromagnet. And you can see that, see, this is the way in which maybe you remember electromagnets are usually represented by such diagrams. You might have seen that in most textbooks. So one will be having a polarity north, other will be having a polarity south, and there will be a magnetic field in between the two things, and here we are keeping that source. Okay, and it's an electromagnet. So how it is made an electromagnet? See, this particular pole, metallic pole, will be surrounded with wires and be connected to one electric connection, and this particular metallic object will be also surrounded by coil, and current will be passed in the opposite direction. Okay, and these are the connections. You can see that in the diagram, these are the connections that is used to pass electric current through the two poles. So this is a very large what you call electromagnet. So this arrangement is what is known as an electromagnet. And what you see here is nothing but a fume hood that is used in a lab, usually used in chemical labs. That's not a part of our diagram. Okay, so this is the arrangement. So what he did was he subjected a sodium vapor lamp. Okay, actually he did it was he burned the sodium in Bunsen burner to start with. He burned the sodium in Bunsen burner, and he subjected a magnetic field using an electromagnet. Now the experimental arrangement is usually done like this, what you see on the picture. Okay, and this phenomenon, you can see that here, you can see that there is some spacing. There is some spacing between the central line and the component lines. So these two are usually these are the component lines, and one is the central line. Okay, so there is a spacing between the original line position and the component line position. So corresponding to the spacing, there will be a delta nu, there will be a change in frequency, there be a delta lambda. There be a difference in the wavelength between these two lines. Okay, so for example, it can be taken as either nu 0 difference nu 1 or nu 2 difference nu 0, whatever it is, or lambda 1 minus lambda 0 or lambda 0 minus lambda 2, whatever it is. The difference between the two wavelength or difference between the two. So that is known as the Zeeman shift. That is known as Zeeman shift. Like Doppler shift, we have got what is known as Zeeman shift. That is the difference between the two. Okay, from the central line, how much the wavelengths are getting what split up. And the moment you switch off it, it will once again become what is single one. Okay, so this is exactly the phenomenon of Zeeman effect. Now we'll come to its literature. See, Zeeman effect, as you have seen, is the splitting of spectral lines into several components in the presence of an applied magnetic field. So that goes the definition, right? So a similar effect, you know, which is known as Stark effect, where the spectral lines are split up in the presence of an electric field. That's yet another effect that is useful. Now, the important thing to be noted is that the amount of splitting. Okay, what is the amount of splitting? Means like what I told, delta nu or what delta lambda. Can either talk in terms of frequency or in terms of what wavelength whenever you talk about electromagnetic waves and spectroscopy. The amount of splitting that depends on two important factors. One is the wavelength, original wavelength. So it depends on lambda of sodium light. If it is sodium light that you are subjecting to a magnetic field H, then it depends on the wavelength of sodium light, okay, or wavelength of whatever light, the original spectrum, right? So it depends on the wavelength of the light that you are using, subjecting to the magnetic field, and also on the strength of the applied magnetic field. The applied magnetic field is denoted by the letter H. You know that there are several notations used in magnetism. You use what is known as magnetic field intensity B. You will be using what is known as magnetizing field H. You will be using what is known as magnetization M. Okay, then the dipole moment, etc. The magnet, there is a chi, which is nothing but the magnetic susceptibility. So you know that all these terms are different meaning. So H actually denotes what is known as the magnetizing field. It denotes the ability of a magnetic field to magnetize something. Okay, so here what comes in the picture is the magnetizing field H. Okay. The component lines, there are something which is what special about, notable about the component lines that we are getting. The component lines are polarized. You know about the polarization of lines, right? Electromagnetic radiations can be either unpolarized or polarized. If it is polarized itself, it can be different types of polarization. I think you are studying about different types of, you have learned about polarization, different kinds of polarization in your maybe optics classes. So there are what is known as what a linear polarization. There can be elliptical polarization. There can be circular polarization. And you know that whether or not a given light is polarized can be checked by using an instrument or a device known as Nicol prism. Okay, Nicol prism is usually a device that is used to check the nature of polarization, or we can use what is known as Polaroids. Of course, I think you remember you have learned about the Malus law. Okay, Malus law in polarization, something like I equal to I0 into cos square theta. Okay, there is a polarizer and analyzer. So I just remind you about the case of polarization. So the thing to be understood is that the component lines that you are obtaining during Zeeman effect is found to be polarized in different ways, while the original or central line remains unpolarized. So that is a notable feature of Zeeman lines. The original lines remains unpolarized, but the two component lines that you observe on both sides, both sides of the central line are found to be polarized. So the nature of polarization of these two lines depends on the way in which you are observing the lines, or the way in which you are applying the magnetic field, whether you apply the magnetic field perpendicular to the light or parallel to the light, depending on that the nature of polarization will be different. I will show it in another diagram. So what is actually I don't know whether you have learned about what is the actual reason for Zeeman effect. The fundamental reason or grassroots level reason for Zeeman effect is due to the quantization of angular momentum of space quantization of angular momentum of atoms. I hope you remember about the angular momentum of atoms. You learned about it's space quantization with some diagrams like this. You are applying some magnetic field B or or H along Z direction, some reference magnetic field is there, and I think you remember that this picture and all what you learned in your see Arthur Baser modern physics classes. So remember, the Zeeman effect is an experimental result. Okay, it's a actually it's a consequence of what is known as the quantization, space quantization of angular momentum of atoms. Okay, and there are two types of Zeeman effect, or Zeeman effect is classified into two. One is known as the normal Zeeman effect, and the other one is known as the anomalous Zeeman effect. I am sure that you might have gone through this one by the time. Okay, now in the what we are discussing okay, in the astrophysics is the normal Zeeman effect. Okay, where you can see that these are the things. Okay, you will get a central line, and see you will be getting a left line, and also these are two component lines. Okay, so two types of observation will lead to two different types of okay, what that lines. Actually, if the light is viewed perpendicular to the magnetic field, then we will get three component lines, or three component lines are observed. Okay, and you will get three component lines. And if you are observing it when the light is viewed parallel to the magnetic field, only two component lines are observed. Okay, so means only nu1 and nu2 are observed in the case of parallel observation. This is longitudinal, okay, parallel observation, and this is transverse. Okay, this is the case of what perpendicular observation. The magnetic field is what perpendicular here. Okay, magnetic field is perpendicular here. Magnetic field is what parallel to the lines. Okay, so there are two cases. Now you can see that in the case of see the parallel, when the magnetic field is parallel to the light, then you can see that the component lines are actually the component lines are polarized. Both are circularly polarized. So the left line with the frequency nu1 is circular polarized, and the right line is also circularly polarized. But the difference is that the left line is if it is left-handed circular polarization, the other one will be right-handed. Means circular polarization can be either left-handed or right-handed. Okay, I hope you remember the levorotatory and dextrorotatory nature of organic molecules when you discussed about okay, the polarization. Okay, see, so one is a okay, levo polarization, and the other one is known as okay, see, dextro type of what circular polarization. Okay, and see that in the case of okay, splitting into three lines, it is found that see all the three lines are linearly polarized. Okay, all the three component lines are linearly polarized. Okay, remember always that original line was unpolarized. Okay, so in the case of three splitting into three, the original line okay, is unpolarized, but the central line is what perpendicularly polarized, and the other two lines are what okay in the perpendicular other okay what do you say they are also linearly polarized, but they will be in the opposite thing. So you can just note down this particular okay symbols that is shown here, showing polarization direction. Now see, I told you that there is a Zeeman shift. What is Zeeman shift? Here you can see in the diagram that by how much wavelength or by how much frequency okay the component lines are separated from the central line is what is known as Zeeman shift. The Zeeman shift is given by a theoretical equation. See, it's an equation that is borrowed from elsewhere. The thing is that I strongly suggest you that please memorize this equation, because okay, you may encounter problems okay based on this equation. Simple equation, you will be given the magnetic field and you will be given the wavelength, and you are asked to find out what is the Zeeman shift. So direct problems only will be obtained. Okay, so the Zeeman shift is given by delta lambda is equal to it can be to the left or to the right. That's why there is plus or minus. Okay, 4.67 into 10 to the power minus 5 g lambda square h. G lambda square h. Remember here this plus or minus 4.67 into 10 raised to minus 5, okay, it's to be taken as a constant factor. Then G is known as the Landes G factor. G is a theory that comes in spectroscopy. Okay, it is known as the Landes G factor or Landes factor or Lande factor. Okay, and see the Lande G factor for Sun is equal to 3. So remember this value for Sun. okay, sun and okay, just see the stars like sun. Now if a problem is given for sun, G may not be given, and in case a problem is given for some other astrophysical object, for example like a pulsar, you are asked to find out the magnetic field of a pulsar, okay, then certainly you will be given the value of that G, or a neutron star, you will be given the value of G for that particular astrophysical object. Otherwise you have to memorize that the value of G is equal to 3, okay, and lambda is the wavelength that we are observing from the particular star. Lambda is the wavelength observed of the particular star in centimeters. So remember, this is something very, very important. This particular multiplication factor has been obtained by substituting lambda in centimeters. Okay, so usually we have a tendency to substitute lambda everything in converted into meters, but be very careful while using this equation. Lambda is in centimeter. I have mentioned it clearly here. Lambda is in centimeter, so substitute lambda in centimeters. Even if it is given in nanometer or angstrom, convert it into centimeters, or you will have to make a corresponding change here in the multiplication factor, better to lambda. And remember, usually we substitute magnetic field in its SI units, okay, so which is what Tesla. But while we use this equation, see that H should be in Gauss. Usually it's a custom to use the magnetic field. Practical magnetic fields are used in Gauss because Tesla is a bigger unit and Gauss is the CGS unit. And so that be very careful about this particular equation. H, the magnetic field, should be in Gauss, and lambda should be in centimeter. G is equal to 3 for sun. So memorize this particular equation. It's quite simple. It is 4.67 into 10 to the power minus 5 G lambda square H. Hope that you can memorize this equation, okay, giving you the seamanship. And you can even take the corresponding frequency shift. So here you can see in terms of frequency, it is given as nu equal to nu 0 plus or minus. What is nu 0? Nu 0 is the central one. So nu is okay, either left one or the right one. Okay, nu 1 or nu 2. So you can take that this nu plus, okay, no, nu minus nu 0. I can call this one as delta nu. Okay, so that will be equal to simply plus or minus EH by 4 pi me. This is the equation. Delta nu will be equal to, if it is given in terms of frequency, you can use either this equation, or what I can tell you is that corresponding to a frequency, you know, there is a wavelength. Okay, so if you get in terms of frequency the problem is given, I strongly suggest you to convert it into wavelength by using simply the relation C is equal to nu lambda, for which is applicable for any electromagnetic wave. Okay, so corresponding to this one, you know that see, corresponding to a delta nu, there will be a corresponding delta lambdas, which you can convert by using this one. Okay, remember, okay, that we are using C in centimeter per second, so that you will be getting lambda also in what? Centimeters. Okay, so be careful about the units, especially in the case of the value of lambda, right? And if you insist to use this particular delta nu, see that all these values, E is the electronic charge, H is the magnetic field, okay, M is the mass of electron, all those things are one same fundamental thing, 4 pi me. So remember this me, this E should have been this way, mass of electron. This is mass of electron, not m into E. Otherwise you will see that this E and E will be getting cancelled. So E in the numerator is the okay, what you say that it is the electronic charge, and see that here also H should be in Gauss and E should be, okay, that is also very important, E should be in electromagnetic units, ESU or electromagnetic unit. Okay, it's not the SI unit, it's not in coulombs. Okay, it should be in the electromagnetic units, right? So better I suggest that you use this equation remembering these two facts. So that's about the normal Zeeman effect and how do we measure it. And finally, before we end the okay, discussion of Zeeman effect, okay, let's see the diagram that is given in your textbook also. Yeah, please, this is the diagram that is given in your textbook. So I have taken it from your textbook. Okay, there is an original line. Then you get what is here. You can see that the applied magnetic field is shown to be perpendicular to the lines. You get 3 lines, and when the applied magnetic field is parallel to the lines, here H denotes applied magnetic field, you will get only what? Only 2 lines. Okay, one is circularly polarized to the left and other is what? Circularly polarized to the right. Here you will be getting what? 3 lines. Okay, here the center line is what? Absent. So there are, this is a snapshot taken from your textbook. right? Now you know, okay, what is the physical or astrophysical significance of Zeeman effect. Okay, and remember we are studying astrophysics, and Zeeman effect is studied as a part of learning astrophysics. What is the significance of Zeeman effect? That is always worth mentioning. And you know, Zeeman effect depends on the Zeeman shift depends on the strength of the applied magnetic field, whether in a lab or it is the magnetic field produced by a heavenly body like any star or see any other heavenly body. It can be used to estimate the magnetic field of sun and other stars. അപ്പോൾ സൂര്യൻ്റെയും അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഏതൊരു നക്ഷത്രത്തിൻ്റെയും മാഗ്നറ്റിക് ഫീൽഡിൻ്റെ അളവ് എത്ര എന്ന് നമുക്ക് അളക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഏറ്റവും ഡിപ്പെൻഡ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഫിനോമിനാണ് എന്ത് സീമാൻ എഫക്റ്റ്. ഓക്കെ, നമ്മൾ എന്തിനാണ് നിങ്ങൾ മോഡേൺ ഫിസിക്സിൽ സീമാൻ എഫക്റ്റ് പഠിച്ചത് എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഇത് തന്നെയാണ് അതിൻ്റെ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് എവിടെയാണ് വരുന്നത് വെച്ചാൽ ശരിക്കും ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് മെയിൻലി ഇൻ ആസ്ട്രോഫിസിക്സ്. ഓക്കെ, നമുക്ക് നേരിട്ട് ആക്സസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റാത്ത സ്ഥലങ്ങളിലുള്ള മാഗ്നറ്റിക് ഫീൽഡ് അളക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി അവിടെ നിന്നും വരുന്ന ലൈറ്റിൻ്റെ സീമാൻ ഷിഫ്റ്റ് മെഷർ ചെയ്താൽ നമുക്ക് ആ സ്ഥലത്ത് പ്രസന്റ് ആയിട്ടിരിക്കുന്ന മാഗ്നറ്റിക് ഫീൽഡിൻ്റെ അളവിനെ പറ്റി നമുക്ക് എന്ത് ചെയ്യാം, ഒരു ഡിസ്റ്റന്റ് റിമോട്ട് സെൻസിങ് നടക്കും. Okay, and you know that without such techniques it would have been impossible to measure the value of magnetic field present in such large distances as that of stars. Okay, and the analysis of Zeeman splitting gives valuable information about the strength and the structure of magnetic field in astronomical bodies. Remember, Zeeman effect ഉപയോഗിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മുടെ സൺസ്പോട്ടുകളിൽ നിന്നും, സൺസ്പോട്ടുകൾ സ്ട്രോങ് മാഗ്നറ്റിക് ഫീൽഡിൻ്റെ ഏരിയാസ് ആണ് നമ്മൾ പഠിച്ചിരുന്നു. സൺസ്പോട്ട് ലീഡർ ഫോളോവർ ഒക്കെ നിങ്ങൾ പഠിച്ച ഓർമ്മയുണ്ടാവും, ഫീൽഡ് ലൈൻസ് ഒക്കെ. അപ്പോൾ സൺസ്പോട്ടുകളിൽ നിന്നും വരുന്ന ലൈറ്റിനെ ഒബ്സർവ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ട് സൺസ്പോട്ടുകളുടെ മാഗ്നറ്റിക് ഫീൽഡ് അളക്കാനുള്ള ശ്രമങ്ങൾ നടന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ സൺസ്പോട്ടുകളുടെ മാഗ്നറ്റിക് ഫീൽഡിൻ്റെ വാല്യൂ ഏകദേശം 10⁻³ to 10⁻⁴ ഗോസ് ആണ് എന്നുള്ള കാര്യം നമുക്ക് അളക്കാൻ പറ്റിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. It is based on Zeeman effect. Okay, and you know that this is many a times greater than Earth's own magnetic field, right, which is only just 0.38 gauss, right? And you can see that there are a number of visuals available in the net. You can see that the Zeeman effect will be shown just like this single line. It is split up into something like this. This is a way in which to be practically shown, okay, around what is known as a at the background of what we call as a sunspot. So that's all about the importance of Zeeman effect. Hope you can understand this one. So I'll be just devoting another session or video for discussing the Doppler effect. Even though it has been discussed in detail, I will just, for completeness, I'll be doing that in the present module. You can just use it and see that we should do some sample problems based on this one. At the end of this basic physics chapter, a number of problems are given in the textbook. You already have a copy of the textbook, and I have shared the original or a PDF version of the textbook through WhatsApp of late. And please work out the problems given at the end of this particular chapter. There are a number of problems based on Doppler effect. One or two problems we already have done in the classroom, but see that problems are slightly different from one to another. Try to work out those problems. It will be helpful for your exams as well. Thank you.